The 23rd Psalm, verse 4, it is a very familiar text. King James Version says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." You may be seated. Today, if you allow me just a moment of your time, I want to come from the subject, walking through the valley. Walking through the valley. It's interesting because many times in church, we tend to speak about the high times in life. It's one thing to come to church on a Sunday and deal with the aspect of motivation. Motivating by praise, we're motivated by the word, we're motivated by the good things that church brings us. But the truth of the matter is that there are some things in our lives. There are some times in our lives. There are some places and some stages of our lives where all of us can admit that it's not always a place where motivation can take me out. Sometimes when we are facing with life issues, that we're dealing with the realness of the life that we live. We're dealing with all the things that add up between Monday and Friday, tossed to us on Saturday. And then we get here on Sunday, some of us wondering and wandering around the idea if this really helps me. Now, as a pastor, it is my goal, it is my hope that every Sunday that you come into this place called Antioch, that you leave a little bit better. I serve you to encourage you. I serve you to equip you. I serve you to engage you. My hope is that Sunday brings back something to you in return for your time. But I know that just because songs are sang and the word is preached and people are smiling, that life does not always end up in a happy rainbow unicorn smile on your face, Jill Scott, living your life like it's golden. There are some times that you still walk out of here, Myra, and you find yourself in a valley. This is when I believe that motivation is good, but I ought to have some instruction. I ought to have some things to prepare me for when life does not seem like the preacher said it was going to be. So I like the 23rd Psalm because Psalms 23 is a psalm of trust and assurance, authored by David, affirming God's protection and guidance. Verse 4 specifically speaks to the reality of life's darkest moments, symbolized by the valley. My brothers and sisters, what I like about this is, and the understanding that you have to have is, that all of us will face valleys in our life. Difficulties, trials, and pain. And how we navigate these valleys reflect our faith in God's provision and protection. How we navigate these valleys, Deacon Carter, is a testament to how we honestly and earnestly accept God in our life. All of us have this moment. So today, when we just want to have a brief conversation with you, I told Reverend Newman that today I just want to sit in the chair. He ain't have his phone on him, so I'm standing up. But it's okay, family, if we just talk today. Just talk about what does this give us? What does this equip us with in order to walk through the valley? September, life is hard. Things are hard. We're living in a world where it seems like every single day there is another issue to be dealt with. Tayon, I know that we are moving out of the time where it used to be, baby, keep on living. You ain't seen life yet. But I'm believing that sooner and sooner life is hitting us at a different rate. I love my mama because my mama talks to me and she says that they all are dealing with some stuff we ain't never had to deal with. I like her because she's honest. Is it okay that my wise members can just help me out today? I know we ain't been living as long as a lot of y'all, but a lot of y'all can admit that what we live in ain't what y'all had to live. How do you expect folks to live? I like this because the church that we used to have was able to have a church community where we weren't always dealing with the controversies of our faith on CNN and all of those things. We didn't have to grapple between right and wrong. We didn't have a sitting pope speaking life and saying that we've got to pick the lesser of evils. All of this around us is causing us to come to church on Sunday. And Tanya go to work on Monday wondering, did any of this matter? But I like this because God in his infinite wisdom understood that you can shout, you can give me praise, you can give me honor, but in return, I've got to give you a word. Got to give you substance to walk through. And there's three things that I see in this text. I think Bishop, I owe him another offering because he said these last things. The first thing that walking through the valley requires is that you got to enter your valley. He said, yea, though I walk through the valley, you got to enter. The author acknowledges the inevitably of entering valleys in life. He points out that this is something, Greg, that we can't run away from. This is something that we can't protect ourselves from, that there are going to be some valleys in your life. Can I suggest to you and tell you by experience that as believers, we are not resistant to hardships. In fact, valleys are a part of the journey. Part of your walk with Christ, part of your journey, part of your acceptance into the faith is that there are going to be some valleys that you've got to cross. Valleys, these low points, these struggles, these shadows of life, these situations where fear and uncertainty loom large. We can't deny or avoid our valleys. Facing them head on is a crucial first step in the spiritual growth. You got to enter your valley. There's no need enough standing on the outside, standing on the range of where we're going in our lives. I tell people that you may not get to your next season because between greatness and where you are right now is a valley. He says you got to do this. He says you got to accept it. When we enter our valley, it's the understanding that entering your valley requires faith, not denial. You can't pretend that the valley doesn't exist, but trust that God will walk with you through it. There's a whole bunch of us pretending as if nothing is wrong with you. You know, I like churchy phrases. Reverend Newman make T-shirts. I like a good church phrase. But just one phrase that I can't stand. And that's when I meet somebody and ask them, how are you? Oh, Pastor, I'm too blessed to be stressed. Stop lying. You live in Columbus, Ohio. You stressed. There are entirely too many orange barrels for you not to be stressed. Too many blinkers that ain't being turned off and ain't nobody turning. I'm preaching on my way into church. I was so mad. I'm downloading Tanya to get the word from the Lord, riding down Fifth Avenue. And the whole way riding, all I saw was the car in front of me. Blink, blink, blink. Oh, drove me crazy, Moyo. All the way, and they turned into the McDonald's on Fifth Avenue. We started on Leonard Avenue, so y'all know I got gray hair now. Because it just make up your mind. Are you too blessed to be stressed? Have you not seen the gas prices? You got to enter your valley requires faith, not denial. You got to realize that even in the darkest moments, God still has purpose. You can't recognize that God has purpose in your life if you're not going to recognize that you got a problem. A bunch of us need to go to AA and do the first step and say, my name is, and I'm this. Whole bunch of preachers can't get to you because you ain't willing to recognize you got a problem. Your praise can't be what your praise got to be because you can't recognize that you struggling. I wish some folks would just walk up in here every Sunday knowing that I got a problem. but I still got faith that God is doing it. He says you got to enter the valley. You gotta understand that this requires faith, not denial. You got to understand that the valley is part of the process to shape, to strengthen, and to prepare you for the next level. All of this is required. Valley. Newman, just as a shepherd leads his sheep through difficult terrain, God leads us into valleys for the reasons beyond our understanding. The valleys. There's no need for, and we know that all things work to good, God, to the good for those that believe in God, if we ain't gonna have no valleys. There's no need to proclaim that the Lord is our shepherd, and yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, there ain't going to be no valley. There's no need to read that the Lord that's inside of me is greater than he that is in the world. If there's no need to come to church and say, if I can't do nothing but wave my hand, if you ain't going to admit you got some valleys. What I like about this is that if I'm walking through the valley, the first thing I got to do is enter the valley. This is a vulnerable moment. This is an opportunity that I'm going to pause right now to allow you to take. This is okay to not be okay. It's okay to say, God, I need some help. It's okay to tell your church family that I'm struggling. It's okay to be vulnerable. I know that churches have set up these proximities to let you know that your blessing is attached to your attitude and how you look, that your blessing is attached. We lie to people and tell them you got to act like what you're going to want God to do in your life. But the truth of the matter is you can act raggedy, but just know God is going to be able to fix your raggedy behind. You can be depressed. Just know that you serve a God that can pull you out. You can be who you are because God says, I match you in the valley to guide you. He says you got to enter your valley. Brandon, not only do you have to enter your valley, once you're there, you've got to embrace your valley. He said, of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Once we enter the valley, Deacon Zimmerman, the natural human response is fear. Yet we see that David declares, I will fear no evil. And this is because of God's presence. This is my favorite part of Psalms 23 because we read over this so much. We talk about this so much. But if you stop and pause and really pull out the pieces of the 23rd Psalm, when you look at it, I wanted Greg to preach this. If y'all ain't never been around Greg has the ability to pull out some stuff. I ain't get a chance to talk to him, but I know some way in his life, y'all got to come to Bible study, the conversation. The boy be pulling out stuff. I'm sure he done seen a valley and somewhere in real life in the desert. But I tried to do that, Greg. As I was looking at this text, I had to get to the point where it says the shadow of death. One thing that I would share with you is that when you read this from now on, I want you to notice that it's only a shadow. Oh, somebody missed their praise break right there. That's where you at in your life right now. You thought you was facing death, but it's just a shadow. It looks terrifying, but it has no power. It's just a shadow. And we understand how shadows work. You've got to understand that in order for the shadow to be there, that it can't harm you because it's only projecting off the light of God. And as long as God is present, the shadow can be there. When God is not present, then the shadow is not there. I'm not even going to think about God not being there because Grandmama told me that he'll never leave me nor forsake me. And so I'm able to embrace my valley, not because it feels good, but it looks good. Somebody look at your neighbor and say, whenever God is in the presence, it looks better. Whenever God is there, have you never been to a doctor and read a diagnosis, but you knew God was in the room telling your daughter, son, it's going to be all right? Have you never been at a job that wasn't making the bills come together, but you still had God in the room, and every single time you wanted to throw in the towel, God was there to catch you? He says, embrace it of the shadow of death. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. David makes a declaration and says that I'm not denying it, I'm embracing it, but I'm only able to embrace it because I continue to look up to the hills which cometh my help, because my help cometh from the Lord. Every now and then you've got to turn around in the valley and say, okay, God, just checking to see if you're still here. I embrace it. I understand that the shadow is a good thing, because the shadow could not be here if there was no light. I'm glad to know that I've got some shadows in my life. There ought to be some things in your life that you got to look for the shadow. It may not look good. It may not be as bright as you want it to be, but as long as there's just a glimpse of light, as long as you realize, could you imagine if God had you dealing with the real thing, if you had to go through the real thing? But thanks be to God that his provision only sets us up to look at the shadow. He said, I got to embrace the valley. He said, the shadow can't harm you when the light of God is present. But how do we embrace this? We embrace it by faith. We must embrace the valley, recognizing that God is with us in it. His presence transforms fear into faith and panic into peace. Embracing your valley is about seeing God's hand at work when life seems unbearable. Know that the valley is temporary, but God's presence is eternal. Shadows change. And how many people know how shadows change? I'm sure y'all need me to help you. I'll help you. Shadows change when the light moves or when you move. Y'all missing it? Let me paint the picture. Here we go. Come here. Let me see. I got some good lighting up here. Thank you, Tanya, for making sure the light bulbs is bright today. Listen, y'all may not be able to see the shadow of this table because of your angle. I can see the shadow. And there's two things that can happen. Eric, do me a favor. Go flip that light switch. There's two things. There's two things. One, the light can change, and the shadow is going to disappear. Now, that would be easy. God doesn't really operate like that. He's going to flip it. I hope he flipped the right light switch, just how some of us are sometimes. We just hoping God don't show up no more. And God does it. Y'all didn't realize that the artillery, like the shadow went away, but there's still one light up there. It works like this. This is how God does it. I thought I was going to get rid of the shadow. I got rid of the shadow, but I'm still in darkness. Turn the lights back on, Eric, because being in darkness wasn't good enough for me, Karen. I didn't want to stay there. I didn't want to be in darkness. It was more scarier in darkness than it was looking at the shadow. And so I got my faith back up, and Myra, I'm still seeing the shadow. And then every now and then, Tayon, I realized something. That if I don't want to see the shadow no more, and I don't want to be in darkness no more, then that means sometimes I've got to just rearrange my position. See, I don't see the shadow. I see what y'all see. Every now and then, you got to understand how to operate in shadow ministry. It's not always that you got to remove the shadow. Sometimes you just got to move away and go to a different position. I'm looking at the same table, but don't see the same shadow. What am I trying to say? Stop looking at your situation from the same angle, but every now and then, you've got to change your position. Thank you, Holy Ghost. I embrace this thing. I understand that the shadow is going to be there, but I embrace it by faith. Embracing your valley is about seeing God's hand at work even when life is unbearable. It's understanding that you trust that God's comfort comes through his rod and his staff, symbol of his protection. And God, this is all in the text. His rod protects you from the enemy, and his staff guides you towards safety. I like this because when I embrace the shadows in my life, I understand that they may not go, but I still have the ability to move. When I embrace the shadows in my life, I recognize that even when the lights change, there's still that little glimpse of hope. Got all bad news all the week, but that one thing that kept me going. All of my kids are going crazy, but that one phone call that says, I'm still doing it. All chaos can be all around us, but that one thing. What is the one thing in your life that provides light? He said, does this. I like this. I was YouTubing Eric late at night. My name is Charles Newman, and I'm addicted to YouTube. It's bad, y'all. I'm one of those people. I start a video, and I just go to the next one all night long. Pray for me. But I came across one. My algorithm is all messed up because my kids watch it. But there was one, Eric, and it was people making gold. They were refining gold. They were making it purified. It was exciting to me because the man had this long rod and on the rod he was holding a piece of gold and he had found it. And I didn't know it was gold. I only knew it because that's what the description said. But what I saw wasn't gold. It wasn't going to do nothing with it. But I saw the man putting the gold in the fire, and he will hold it there. He would take it out the fire, he would look at it, he would clean it off, he would go like this, and he put it back in there. One of them videos that's playing music behind, so you don't really know what's going on, and he take it out again, and Mother Christian, he put it back in and take it out. For 5 minutes and 43 seconds, I'm watching it go in and come out, go in. I ain't scrolled past yet because it has to be more. And then eventually, the man comes on the camera, he says, it's done. We now know that this gold is ready to be sold and has been purified. The interviewer said, well, how do you know it's ready? What are the characteristics? He says, I only need to see one thing in the gold. The man said, well, what is that one thing? I thought he was going to see a number. I thought he was going to see a level of gold in his brain. I didn't know what he was going to see. He said, I know that it's done when I can see myself in it. I said, I'm going to preach that because that's where we are sometimes. God has us in a valley and he takes us out. He puts us in. He puts us in fire, in and out, in and out. You've been up and you've been down. You've been tossed and you've been turned. And God says, I got to complete the process, but I won't know that you're done. I won't know that you're ready. I won't know that you're pure until I can see myself. And I wish I had somebody in here that can say, I thank God that he didn't give up on me. I thank God that he kept me to my truth. I thank God that when I embraced my valley, it was the process that allowed me to receive his image. And when I look like God's gift, when I look like God's blessing, that's why folks are looking at you crazy and funny and say, ain't no way you've been through hell the way you look. It's because God took you to hell but brought you back. It's because God put you in the fire but brought, and you know what? I missed the part of the video. Every now and then, when the gold was shined too much and it was too hot, the man would blow on it and cool it down. Oh, that's a testimony for somebody because God has blown on you. You felt God's breath on you in the midst of the process. He says, you've got to enter your valley. While you're there, you've got to embrace your valley. The last thing that the author gives us, that the text compels us to do. Encouragement comes and motivation is seen because he says you got to exit your valley. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. This is an important thing because we have some of us that are what I like to be called valley dwellers. You ain't become the valedictorian of your high school, but you the valedictorian. Y'all know who they are. There are some folks who just refuse to move out of the valley. They got all the same attributes. They got all the same process, but they don't understand that the valley is not a permanent dwelling place. And David's use of through implies movement, transition, and completion. God's protection ensures that you don't remain in the valley, but walk through it to the other side. All shucks up in here. Because what it tells me is that thy rod and thy staff, that's God's guidance. His rod and staff are the tools to lead you out of the valley. When you follow God's direction, you will emerge from the valley stronger, wiser, and more refined. When you follow God's direction, you understand that there is victory beyond the valley. When you follow God's direction and you exit your valley, you understand that exiting the valley brings you to a place of victory and testimony. I got to enter the valley. I've got to embrace the valley. But ultimately, I've got to exit the valley. Was once a place of despair now becomes a testimony of God's deliverance and faithfulness. The secret of life in this walk, in this journey, is knowing that God always has a plan for your exit. Yeah. While the valley feels endless, it won't last forever. Keep moving forward. Keep trusting that God is leading you to a greater pastures and still waters. When you exit, you will have a deeper understanding of God's faithfulness. Your testimony will inspire others in their valleys. I came here today just to have a conversation, and I wish this was Friends and Family Day because I wanted some friends to come, but they were tied up, Deacon Carter. I wanted the Israelites to come and tell us how they were walking through the Red Sea. But God made a way through their seemingly impossible situation. And on the other side, they sung songs of deliverance. I wanted to call my first cousins, Al, Paul, and Silas, in prison for preaching the gospel in Philippi. But after God came and brought them through, on the exit, their deliverance was that they prayed and sang hymns, resulting in an earthquake that opened the prison doors leading to their release. I wanted to call Uncle Pete, because I remember his valley situation when he was arrested and imprisoned by King Herod for spreading the gospel. But on the exit of his valley, an angel of the Lord miraculously freed Peter from prison. Eric, I wanted to call them cousins that we ain't talked to in a long time, Ruth and Naomi. Because I remember their valley situation when they were widowed and facing poverty. Ruth and her mother-in-law, Naomi, were in a desperate situation. But I am glad to know that they exited the valley, Myra, because God provided a redeemer by the name of Boaz, who married Ruth, restoring their hope and securing their faith. Mother Reeves, I tried to get Deacon Job here. Y'all know Deacon Job, that had a valley situation where he lost his wealth, his health, and family in a series of devastating events. But he didn't give up because he understood that God was still working it all out. And on the other side of his valley, after remaining faithful, God restored Job's fortune, giving him double for what he had before. I tried to get Daniel here, y'all, thrown into the lion's den for refusing to stop praying to God. But on the other side of his valley, God sent an angel to shut the mouths of the lion, and Daniel was unarmed. I tried to get him here, y'all, on a Southwest flight, but I couldn't get him here in time. But don't forget about the Treamungos, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, thrown into a fiery furnace for refusing to bow to the king Nebuchadnezzar. But isn't it good to know that that's not how their story ended? Because when they exited their valley, God protected them in the fire, and they emerged unharmed without even a smell of smoke. I gotta go here, y'all, but I can't leave without talking about the greatest valedictorian found in the Bible. That old raggedy, dressed, sandal-wearing, long-haired, brown-skinned brother named Jesus from a place called, y'all know who I'm talking about, Nazareth. That ghetto gangster that we knew hung on a cross one Friday. He stretched him wide and his arms wide because he had been trumped up with some fake charge. I wish I could have got him here, because if can't nobody tell you about God delivering you from a valley, I know that my Lord and Savior, Jesus, can. They hung him up on Friday, nails in his hand, a crown of thorns in his head, but that's not all, y'all. That's not what makes him the undefeated champ, because on the exit of his valley, he stayed there Friday, he stayed there Saturday, but bright early, I feel my help without an organ, bright early Sunday morning, he got up with all power in his hands. I don't know about y'all, but that one right there makes it all right for me to walk through the valley. I'm walking through the valley. You're going to walk through the valley. And as you are living this life of Christianity, just remember, you got to enter the valley. You've got to embrace the valley. But the final decision you've got to make is that you've got to exit the valley. Songwriter said, it won't always be like this. Sooner or later, it's going to turn in your favor. It won't always be like this. He said, God is going to work on that thing that's concerning you. It don't always be like this. So my brother, my sisters, cry your tears, but know that an exit plan is in place. Go through your stuff and your issues, but know that there's an exit in place, because God has promised to be there as a shepherd is there for his sheep. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Those words bring us joy. It solidifies the fact that he is our shepherd. But I like the closing of it, because the author says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I dare you have the kind of faith to be bold and look at your situation and say, I'm just passing through. This is just temporary. I'm not worried about this. This is serious. Just start thinking and dealing with your life in a way that tells yourself, I can make it. I can get through it. I'm walking through the valley. If that's you today, if that's where you find yourself, let me tell you that you are looking at somebody. I didn't make the Bible, but I made the sermon. Looking at somebody that knows a little something about valley walking. Walking when it seems like nothing is going right. But I'm not by myself. I enjoy coming here on Sunday because there's so many of us that have walked through the valley. Celebrate the testimonies every day. I call my brother, we talk every day. And the joy, you don't know what it's like to hear him talking about all the work of him putting his house together. See, I remember when the valley was, Myra, he couldn't get a house. I remember when the valley was that he was at the courtroom for an eviction. I'm not putting his business out there. I'm putting his blessing out there. But I'm here to tell you that the judge may have had that judgment, but God had a plan for him to, come on somebody. He said, surely in goodness. All of us have a story. Myra, there's a valley story for Myra, but they thought they were going to put her through some stuff. They thought she wasn't going to do anything. But I was there. I seen it with my own eye when the exit plan was in place and she walked across that stage and got her degree from Franklin. I'm just telling somebody that there's a plan for the valley. Mother Reeves, I'm sure you can attest that the Lord made a way. Mother Ragland, I look at y'all and I remember strong men carried them. They were in the head of their life. Folks looked at them and said that now life won't be the same. I don't know what they're going to do. But every Sunday, they recognized that that was just a valley. And God had an exit plan. Deacon Carter can testify with me. Tanya can testify with me. That when the numbers did not make sense here at Antioch, we might have been in the valley, but we kept pushing because we saw the light. We didn't know sometimes how it was going. Boy, we look, Trustee Tanya and Deacon Carter and me, we were moving some things around where we were, as my mama say, robbing Peter to pay Paul. We were negotiating with the cable company, talking to AP. But can I let you know there's an exit plan in place? And we're not here because we were good. We were here because goodness was good. Mercy was good. Mercy followed. We were just walking through. But here we are on the other side. Here we are, Anita, on the other side. Here we are, Karen, on the other side. Deacon Zimmerman, I know. Sister Zimmerman, I hope she can hear me right now. I might be in the valley, but I'm here to let you know that there's an exit plan in place. And as long as she keep on moving and navigating, God said, I'll remove you. Al, there is an exit plan. Brandon, there's an exit plan. September, there's an exit plan. I'm just talking to some. Kim, there's an exit plan. I know what you're going through because I've seen what you had to deal with, but there's an exit plan. I sat in your living room and you were trying to figure out how the pieces were going to be put together, how the puzzle was going to make sense. But I'm still looking at you. You still in your right mind. You still got a roof over your head. You still got health in your body. Ripped life out of her. But guess what? God said, I got an exit plan for you. I'm not telling you what I know. Telling you what I lived. I'm not telling you what I heard about. I'm telling you what I lived. I'm not telling you what somebody had to show me. I'm telling you what God gave to me. And that was an exit plan out of the valley situations. It don't always be like this. And with that, we know that God will deliver us from the valley. Into your valley. Embrace your valley. But ultimately, you got to exit. Don't y'all get stuck in valley situation. Because I'm moving on to bigger and better things. And if my soldiers can attest, once you've been to one war, you war ready. You already you ready for the next problem. You ready for the next situation. So if you're here today